For the last year, I've been riding my bike from the very top of Alaska down to Mexico where I am right now. And in that time, almost all my gear and even my bike has changed. But I can now confidently say that I am completely happy with my setup. So I thought it was about time I shared with you all the bike that I'm riding, all of my gear and how I pack it onto the bike. So first of all, the bike itself. The keen-eyed of you will notice this is not the bike that I started with. So previously I had the Surly Grappler, which although it served me well, after the frame cracked on 3 separate occasions, I realized it wasn't going to be the bike that would take me through some of the more extreme and remote sections of South America. So I reached out to the makers of my dream bike and they sent me the parts needed to build this, the Tumbleweed Prospector. And for many reasons, I believe this to be the ultimate long distance bikepacking bike. So first of all, it is designed and built around the roll-off speed hub drive chain. The internal gear hub protects it from the elements and it requires very little maintenance other than a oil change every 5,000 kilometers or so. The perfect chain line also means far less wearing on the chain and chain rings, so they're going to last a lot longer as well. Now it does take a little getting used to as you can only shift gear when the chain isn't fully under tension. However, this does allow you to shift multiple gears very quickly, even when stationary. I'm sure all of you watching have at some point had to suddenly stop and then you're struggling to get going again because you're in too high of a gear. Or you've come across a very unexpected steep hill at the bottom of a descent and you've had to get off your bike and push because you weren't able to shift down gears quick enough. This solves both of those problems. Next up, we have the huge tyre clearance. Thanks to this, it takes a serious amount of mud to stop this bike, which has been very helpful so far in Mexico during the rainy season. It allows for a very wide range of wheel and tyre sizes. I'm personally running 29 by 3 inch Surly Dirt Wizards, which I've been riding for about 2 months now and just absolutely love them. They stick to the dirt roads out here in Mexico really nicely and they're giving me the most comfortable ride I've ever had. They also allow for up to 26 by 4 inch and 27.5 by 3.8 inch. So you have tons of options to tailor your tyre and wheel sizes to whatever riding you might be doing. And what makes the wide range of wheel and tyre options extra special on the Prospector is that it has an eccentric bottom bracket, which allows you to adjust the position of the bottom bracket depending what wheel and tyre combination you go with. And that also allows for chain tension adjustments as your chain stretches over time. The handlebars are the Tumbleweed Persuader bars, which are nice and wide and have 30 degrees of sweep. I find this puts me in a quite upright and very comfortable position. I'm using the Ergon G1 roll-off grips, as well as some SQ Labs inner bar ends, which give me just an extra hand position. For me, if you're trying to do 5, 6, 7 hour days on the bike, you need extra hand positions, otherwise it's just not going to be comfortable and you're not going to be able to sustain it day in, day out. I then have the pull components brake levers and the bike yoke dropper lever, which of course is connected to my dropper post. This helps out with the rough and steep descents, and it's also quite handy just to have when you're getting on and off the bike throughout the day. Now the saddle itself is the Brooks B17 and this is the only piece of equipment that I still have from when I first started traveling by bike. I've always found it really comfortable, never had any issues with it, although I do know some people don't get on with it. Either way, it's really important to find a saddle that is comfortable for you, as this is going to make a huge difference to how much you enjoy yourself while bikepacking. So my front wheel is built with a Son Dynamo hub, which connects to my front and rear lights, as well as a K-light switch and USB charger that goes in this top tube bag here. Having this means I don't need to worry about whether or not I've charged up my lights if I unexpectedly find myself riding in the dark, which inevitably will happen while you're bikepacking. The charger is definitely not necessary, although that little bit of extra charge in my power banks does add up over time. So it's probably worth having on a trip this long. And finally, we have the racks. These are the Tumbleweed Chromoly pannier racks. As someone that has broken multiple racks already, I do have to say these feel very strong. And I have quite a lot of faith these are going to last me for the rest of the trip. So that's the bike, and now I'll go through all my gear and how I pack it on. So on my rear rack, I like to use a backpack. This system, compared to using a saddlebag, is going to weigh more, but it's going to have a lot more capacity and it's going to be much more stable. Also, on a trip this long, it's really nice to have a backpack with you for when you go hiking or when you do a big food shop. For this, you're going to want a roll top backpack as it makes it a lot easier to just stuff a load of stuff inside. This is a Fuel Raven 28 litre backpack, and I think it's actually the smallest one I could find that had a roll top. So in here, I put everything I'm not going to need during the day as it's going to be a little bit more difficult to access. So first up is the sleeping bag. This is actually a Thermarest Vespa 7-degree quilt. Because I'm quite often camping pretty hot here in Mexico, this is perfect because it's very lightweight and not too warm. Of course, when I get to South America, I'll switch this out for something much warmer. Just tailor it to whatever sort of conditions you're going to be camping in. Now, because I actually travel with a laptop so I can make and edit these videos, what I like to do is take the laptop and just wrap the sleeping bag around it a few times and slot this into the sleeping bag first. If not traveling with a laptop, as many of you won't be, you can just go ahead and stuff the sleeping bag in now. I will leave some of the bag hanging out so I can stuff it in later and fill up all the gaps. Next in is my sleeping pad. This is a Thermarest Neo Air X Therm. I think it's the best warmth to weight ratio one they have. Served me very well in the winter, although it does puncture quite easily. Next in goes all my clothes inside this stuff sack pillow from Zed Packs. I much prefer stuff sack pillows to inflatable ones. I find them way more comfortable. They give me a better night's sleep. In terms of clothes, I have, of course, what I'm wearing right now. This is what I'll ride in most days. Merino wool t-shirt with some arm sleeves to keep me out of the sun. A buffer as well to keep the sun off my neck. And a hat to keep me shaded. And then just some merino socks and these Fox mountain bike flat shoes. I do really like these for riding in, although they are not very good for hiker bike. So other than what I'm wearing, I'll also bring a merino hoodie, 2 more pairs of merino underwear and socks, another pair of shorts, and a t-shirt for rest days. Then I'll stuff in a down jacket for the cold evenings. This one's from Patagonia. And I'll now stuff the rest of the sleeping bag in to just fill up any gaps. Then on the top of that, I'll put an electric shaver, my toiletries, and my tent pegs. Then finally, in goes the tent itself. This is the Durston X Mid 1. I started out with a big Agnes tent, and after it decided to stop being waterproof during the winter, I ended up buying this off of a warm showers host. And now I cannot imagine using another tent. It's very lightweight, quick to set up, has a lot of vestibule space, and it's held up to all the strong winds and rain that it's needed to so far. Now, traditionally it is a hiking pole tent, but they do sell these bikepacking poles, which are very useful. So I'll stick these down either side of the bag and then put the tent on top of everything. You're going to want to put the tent in last, as it's going to be the first thing you want when you're setting up camp in the evening. Even though this is waterproof, I will then take a big bin bag, or you can use an actual backpack cover if you want. And that will stop any of the straps hitting your wheel and will just keep it a bit cleaner and drier. Then onto the rear rack it goes, stuffing it under the seat. And I strap it on using these Rock motorcycle straps. Now, I used to use the Voile orange rack straps, which were very good. They're very strong, but they do stretch and warp over time. And the plastic clip that hooks onto the rack does eventually start bending and it comes off really easily. So I've spent way too much time at camp searching through the grass trying to find it. And I even had one come off while I was riding once, and the whole strap ended up getting wrapped around my hub, which wasn't ideal. Then also on the back of here, I will strap on a pair of sandals. And then next up, we got these Ponderosa pannier bags from Old Man Mountain. Now they're not too big, and they also have these 3 compression straps, as well as a front frame sheet, which allows for even compression. And that makes it perfect for food storage. When it comes to food storage, I like to have bags that you can change the capacity of. As on a trip like this, at times I'm hitting towns multiple times a day, so I only need to carry a few snacks. And at other times I'm gonna be going 3 weeks without towns and I'll need to carry all of my food for that time. So having a bag which you can easily alter the size of, I think is amazing for food storage. And these are great because I can loosen all the straps and I can fit a ton in them. And then when I don't need them to be very full, I can just tighten all the straps and it's like they're barely even there. And these then go onto my front rack. They could also go onto my rear rack, but I prefer the weight distribution with them on the front, especially with the amount of food that I'm carrying at the moment. Once I'm traveling through much more remote areas and these are full to the brim a lot more often, I might find they're better off at the back because it might just affect my steering a little bit too much. Also in these panniers is all of my cooking equipment. So I've got my alcohol stove. This is the Sidewinder tie try, which fits nicely inside this pot. I've only been using this for the last 2 months, but I really like it. I was previously using an MSR multi-fuel stove, but I prefer this because it's just much smaller, much more lightweight, more simple to use, and the fuel is much more readily available in the countries that I'm going to be traveling through. The only downside to this is the cook times are much slower, but I'm never in a rush when I'm cooking, so it's not really a problem for me. I drink a lot of coffee, so I've got an AeroPress Go with the metal reusable filter, and then I'll have a Ziploc bag with a spork, a knife, and this, which is the GSI compact scraper, which is just amazing for cleaning out my pot. I also then have a cat hauler for when I need to go use the toilet, and my water filter. So in here, I have a Catadin B3 filter, along with a Hydro Flask 2-litre bladder. This screws perfectly onto here, and the bladder that comes with this is much smaller and it's just really weak. It gets holes in it way too quickly. Next up, we have the frame bag. So this was a custom-made frame bag for my old bike, made by an independent guy in the US called Rambler Bags. Now, Tumbleweed actually do sell one specifically for this bike that's made by Rockgeist. Hopefully I'll get my hands on it sometime in the future. But luckily this one actually fits this frame quite well. Whatever bike you have though, if you're getting a frame bag custom made, I would strongly recommend getting one with a roll top. Less people make them, but they are far better than ones with zips. Zips will eventually fail on you, and they also can't be 100% waterproof. Plus with a roll top, if you want to stuff quite a lot in there, you've got the extra material to allow you to do that. So in general in here, you want heavy items and things that you want quick access to throughout the day. Now, the first thing I actually put in here is my passport in a Ziploc bag to keep it dry. I just put it right at the bottom there, and then I know it's not going to accidentally fall out and go missing, and it'll be safe there. Then I've got this box of kind of electronics and chargers and wires and a hard drive and some other bits and bobs that I need for documenting the journey. And then 2 power banks. These are the Nightcore 20,000 milliampere power banks. They're by far the best ones out there. They're about half the weight of anything that has a similar amount of charge. And I think these charge an iPhone maybe 4 or 5 times. I actually have a third one I carry, which I'll come to later, which is probably slightly excessive. But for me, because I'm filming everything, I need quite a lot of charge. And generally the main reason I end up getting a hotel on this trip is to charge all my devices overnight. So having a good few of these saves me a few nights in hotels and saves me some money in the long run. Then in goes everything I need for repairs and maintenance. So first of all, I have my tool wrap. And in here, I'll have the Wolftooth 8-bit toolkit, which covers most things I need. I also have a Leatherman, mostly just for the pliers, a spanner for the bolts on my racks, and a 6mm Allen key for my bottom bracket adjustments. Essentially, you just want to have all the tools you'll need for any little bits of repairs and maintenance that you're going to do on the road. Also in here, I have some spare brake pads, some spare valve cores, and this. This is Loctite Blue. Now, if you don't know what this is, I really couldn't recommend it enough. It's essentially a kind of a glue that you put on the thread of your bolts before you tighten them. It's basically weak enough that you can still loosen the bolts if you need to, but it's strong enough that it stops them coming loose through vibrations and rattling, which will just inevitably happen over enough time while bikepacking. Then I have a little bag with some spare tubeless sealant, a little toothbrush for cleaning my chain lube, some sort of tape, either electrical or Gorilla, and some super glue. With all of that, you can generally fix most little problems that you'll have on trail, at least just well enough to get yourself to the next town. And then, of course, a pump. Now, the only thing I have for repairs and maintenance that doesn't go in there is a spare tube and a puncture repair kit. Because I have tubeless tires, I ideally will never have to use this. And so I just tape it onto my seat post here, and then it's out of the way, I don't have to think about it. Then finally, I'll chuck in some sun cream, a head torch, just in case I get caught out riding in the night. It's good to have quick access to this. My sunglasses, and some camera batteries in Ziploc bags to keep them dry. So this here is the Restrap Race top tube bag. I've cut a little hole at the back here, which allows me to wire in the USB charger for my dynamo. And so also in here, I have a power bank charging as I'm riding. And I also put in there a little wall charger and a USB-C and an iPhone cable. So I have quick access to them if I stop at a restaurant or something and I want to get a little bit of extra charge. Also in here, I'll put my headphones, a card holder, and any loose change I might have. So for water storage, I have 3 Blackburn Outpost cages, 2 on the forks, 1 on the down tube here. And on each fork, I will put a 1-litre Nalgene bottle. And if I need to carry some extra water, I can put a 1.5-litre or 2-litre bottle on the bottom there. I also then have 2 Rockgeist speed bags, which go onto the handlebars. And in one of them, I'll keep a sports bottle so I can drink while I'm riding. And the other one I actually use as fruit storage now. It's the only place I found on the bike where I can keep soft fruits like bananas and kiwis without them getting squished pretty quickly. Also on one of these bags, I will keep my Garmin InReach Messenger. This allows me to send satellite messages from my phone and also get weather updates even when I have no phone signal. And most importantly, it allows me to send an SOS if the worst happens and I ever need rescuing. If you want to go anywhere truly remote, this is 100% necessary. So for a handlebar bag, I'm using the Ortlieb Handlebar QR2. And then in here, I've got some first aid stuff in Ziploc bags, a kind of GoPro chest mount, a journal, because I like to write a little bit, and then my drone along with its controller. And on top of them, I'll put a microfiber towel. I like to just have quick access to this in case I do a river crossing or something like that and I just want to dry off my feet. And then my raincoat. Now, if either of those things are wet and they need to dry, instead of putting them in, I will basically just strap them to the top here. Then onto the handlebars goes my Garmin Edge 1030. Any cycling computer will do. I just really like this one because I think it has 40 hours of battery life and it has solar charging, which extends that even further. I will also then clamp my GoPro onto the handlebars with the Jaws clamp. And finally, just a couple of luxury items. I like listening to music on trail and at camp, so I carry a little speaker with me, which just goes in a pouch on the side of my handlebar bag. And then this is quite a new addition, which I don't know how long it's going to last for, but this is a yoga mat. When you're doing a trip this long and you're putting in 5, 6, 7 hour days of cycling day in, day out, naturally your body starts to tighten up a lot and you really do need to stretch, otherwise you're just not going to feel great. Problem is, whenever I stop in a hotel, it's always hard tiled flooring, and at camp it's quite often rocky and uncomfortable. So having a yoga mat with me means I'm now stretching a lot more and my body feels a lot better. It also doubles up nicely as a bit of protection for your sleeping pad, so I'll probably get a few less punches now. And this just straps onto the top of my front rack here. Now, the only things I haven't mentioned are helmet. This is a helmet from Fox. Anything will do really, as long as it has MIPS, it will keep you safe. Also gloves, again, just some generic gloves from Fox. Anything will do really. And then for carrying my camera, I use this Rockgeist roll top hip pack. I think carrying a camera on the body is the safest way to carry it and look after it, so I always will use hip packs, and this is the only one I really know about that is completely waterproof. So I think I've touched on everything there. If there's anything I've missed out or any questions you might have, just leave a comment and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as I've got a bit of Wi-Fi. I've also linked a full gear list and build list for my bike in the description if you're interested in that. I hope you enjoyed it and got something useful out of this. Thank you for watching.